Recording in progress.
Yep.
All right. Call the August 5th Heritage Preservation Commission meeting to order. Liz, if you could please do roll call.
Yes. Commissioner Dupay,
Present.
Nagisetti, Phillips,
Present.
Pleiss, Welvert,
Here.
and Vice Chair Snyder.
Present. All right, that moves us on to item number 3, which is adopting the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to adopt it.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Welvert, seconded by Commissioner Dupay to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And that is all ayes, so the motion carries. That moves us on to item number 4, which is visitor presentation. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom, we've got a big following, that would like to speak about something that's not already on the agenda?
I don't see anyone online.
Great, wonderful. All right, we'll move on to item number 5, which is approving the previous HPC minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the March 4th, 2025 minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will move to approve the minutes.
And I will second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Welvart to approve the March 4th, 2025 HPC minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. The motion carries. That'll move us on to item number 6, which is the consent agenda, and there are no consent items, so we will move straight into item number 7, which is our action items for today. Liz, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so we did go through this protocol at our March meeting to appoint a chair and a vice chair. Chris Coleman was appointed as chair. Caleb was appointed as vice chair. Unfortunately, with Chris's recent passing, we are in the situation where we do have to appoint a new chairperson for the HPC, so that's really what you're being called to do this evening, is to make that formal motion. So I do want to put out there that any one of you is eligible for that. So if you're feeling called to the position, put your name in the hat, or let your commission members know this evening that you're interested in doing that. Caleb, you're more than welcome to step up to chair if you're feeling comfortable for it. If that's the case, then we would be making 2 different motions this evening for chair and vice chair. So you guys can discuss and see who would like to be appointed.
I'm happy to transition that way if that feels like a natural fit for everybody, but happy to hear any thoughts.
I think I'm only here until December, and then I'm actually done, right?
Yeah, unless you want to reappoint or apply for
I think
reappointment.
it's been 9 years.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, so you're probably coming
I'll
up
sit this one out, because
Okay.
by default.
Term limited. So
Yeah.
it wasn't your fault.
Well, I mean, I could, but I'm just going to be doing this again come January.
That's fair. Okay, would anyone like to make a motion
A motion.
to appoint the chair for HPC?
A motion if you are interested in serving as chair for you to continue on. Take the next step.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Dupay, seconded by Commissioner Phillips to appoint Commissioner Snyder as the chair of the Heritage Preservation Commission. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed, so the motion carries. So then we'll add another action item to appoint a vice chair, if anyone would be so interested.
I would be open to the vice chair.
Oh, motion.
All right.
Service. Vice chair.
All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Dupay. I will second that motion, seconded by Commissioner Snyder, to appoint Commissioner Phillips as the vice chair of the Heritage Preservation Commission. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. The motion carries. That will move us on to item number 8, which is discussion items. So once again, floor back to Liz.
Thank you. I'm just going to do a quick introduction before we get Alyssa started on her presentation, but just wanted to give a recap of kind of what we've been working on this summer. So the city has partnered with the University of Minnesota's Resilient Communities Project, or what we call RCP, to progress one of our goals with the HPC about expanding our local historic nomination list. This list has been in existence since the 90s and has periodically been expanded over the years, with our last addition to the list in 2006. So now we have 55 properties on that list, and it's, again, a goal or an objective of the HPC to continue to add significant properties to this list that are deemed to have historic significance. So at the start of the summer, we did partner again with the U of M and specifically got Alyssa Bidwell on board, who is a student with the U of M through the RCP program. And she was tasked with researching a few properties that have potential in being nominated on the local register. And those properties were identified by the HPC in previous years, so even before some of the current commission members were on the HPC, to look at those further to see if they're eligible to be potential nominees. Nominations do require an extensive amount of research of the property, looking at a variety of things like architectural character, cultural resources, notable persons or families associated with sites, or having the embodiment of certain architectural styles. So Alyssa has been doing that background work for the last few months, gathering information on these varying topics for 3 specific properties in downtown. So tonight she is giving a presentation to kind of give you an update of all the work and research that she's been able to collect over the last few months. And we're very excited for you guys to see that work. I do just want to preface that, again, tonight is simply just a progress report. We're not taking any formal action on anything. That is ultimately the goal to get there, but that would happen at a later meeting. And we would go through the proper steps to kind of get that put in place for you guys to act on. So with that, I mean, ultimately, you know, once Alyssa completes her work, hopefully we'll have official nomination forms to present to you from staff to be able to give a recommendation on whether or not they deem eligible for being nominated. And that would ultimately be a recommendation to City Council and any other affiliated organizations like SHPO or the State Historic Preservation Office to make that more official. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Alyssa. She's going to come to the podium, and we're going to get her presentation up here. So just one moment. And then just confirm that you can see it in front of you, so we're not.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to put this in full screen mode here, too. And there we go.
Thank you, Liz. As she mentioned, my name is Alyssa, and I am going into my 2nd year as a PhD student at the University of Minnesota. And I have had a wonderful time this summer having the opportunity to do this research and understand these properties a little bit more and why they might be potentially really strong candidates for historic nomination. And I'm really excited to introduce these properties to you all and let you all in on some of the historic background that does make them special. So as Liz mentioned, we sort of narrowed down the work here from a very big long list to a much shorter list of properties that we thought would make especially strong candidates. And some of that came from a couple of different qualifiers, first being their architectural background and significance, whether they had maintained or displayed some sort of specific element to the city of Chaska. The second would be their connection to the culture and significant historical figures in the city of Chaska. And the third, potentially the most important, would be the degree of consent that we were able to obtain from the property owners. Obviously, that was very important in this process. And the properties that I am showing you today are all properties that owners have expressed an interest in pursuing this process with. Those three would be the Glatzel House, which is at 403 First Street West, the Myers House, which I continue to mispronounce, unfortunately, at 307 North Cedar, and the Lieberman House at 515 First Street West. So we'll begin with the Glatzel House. As you can see, there's a photo here. This was built in 1868. According to my research, I believe that this house will meet two sections of HPC's criteria under Section 31 of the ordinance. The first being associated with the life of a person or persons who significantly contributed to the city's culture and development. And the second being contains elements of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship which represent a significant innovation. So in this circumstance, that would be the use of Chaska brick. This, for its historic functioning use, the Glatzel House has been a single family resident both historically and currently. So into the fun part a little bit. First, here's a bit of an aerial view, just so you know where this house is positioned on the northeast corner of Elm and First Street. Now onto the fun part. So some of the historical narrative here. This house was built by Wilhelm and Clara Glatzel in 1868 with construction costs of approximately $1,500. The Glatzel family had immigrated from Neustadt, Germany in 1850 following the German Rebellion of 1848. I think it's important to note, I know for certain with the Glatzel House as well as the Lieberman House, these were likely sections of land that had been renegotiated in a treaty and were originally indigenous land that were then sold by the United States government. So Ed Glatzel, who was the son of Wilhelm and Clara Glatzel, was known as being a shoemaker and a repairer, as well as a local historian who was responsible for a significant amount of Chaska's historic documentation, including a series of genealogies and documentation of obituaries that were printed in the Chaska Herald from 1864 to 1954. Those genealogies were actually very helpful to me. I was able to use genealogies for the Glatzel family, the Myers family, and the Lieberman family in my research, all compiled by Ed Glatzel himself. J.A. Glatzel, which is the uncle to Ed Glatzel, had opened a local harness shop in the 1890s, and Ed Glatzel worked as an apprentice for his uncle at the original harness shop, which was in First Street in Shakopee in 1916. Eventually, they would open up a second business and move that business to 113 2nd Street West in Chaska, and by 1922, demand would increase so much that Ed Glatzel became a full-time shoe repairman in the city of Chaska, and eventually would own and operate the business himself well into the 1970s. One of the original shoe repair machines actually remains in permanent collection at the History Center, which I think is pretty neat. I have some photos here for you as well. The top photo is that of Ed Glatzel, I believe, and his wife. This middle photo right here is going to be of the original saddle and shoe shop. You can see Ed Glatzel is in the white shirt with the vest on. He's got a mustache as well. And a tool that had become very helpful for me was searching through historical newspaper databases, so I was able to actually find an original advertisement for the shoe store, which I thought was pretty neat. So an additional element to this house that's important is its architectural significance, namely the fact that it is original Chaska brick construction. It has a cross gable roof with 3 added enclosed porches. You can kind of see 2 of them here. There's one on the north facing side of the house as well as the east and west facing sides of the house. There are 2 original Chaska brick chimneys, and you can kind of see on this side of the house ghost marks and discoloration that indicates that they were previously used and functioning. I don't know if they are still functioning chimneys at the moment, but they were used in the past. Many of these original elements, namely the Chaska brick and the use of the chimneys, sort of indicate this preservation of the materials that have been used and the construction trends from this era. The house endured 2 major floods in its time. The first was in 1951 when the water pooled up all the way through the cellar level. The second one being in 1965, which resulted in nearly 2.5 feet of water pooling on the main floor of the house. It's recorded that the Glatzel family, upon that second flooding, actually went and stayed at the shoe shop while their house was being fixed and ate food off of a hot plate. Which is quite impressive considering they had, I think, 5 children, so they were all squeezed in there. All right, so now we can move on to our next house, which would be the Myers house. This one was built in 1875, and I would say the criteria met is largely the association to a significant historical figure in the community of Chaska who contributed to the city's development and culture. This is also a single-family residence, both historically and currently. There is the location, as you can see, a little bit farther north on 3rd Street. So the historic narrative for this house. It was originally owned by John Newskins. There are 2 spellings there because of immigration changes, who sold the house and plot to Matthias Henry Myers in March of 1880 for $600 cash. Myers, at the age of 10, had immigrated to the United States from the Netherlands to a 120-acre farm in Dahlgren Township, just near Chaska, in 1861. Myers eventually married his wife, Augusta Schindler, at the Guardian Angels Catholic Church the same year that he purchased this house. He would go on to learn the printer's trade and work at the Weekly Valley Herald in 1875. But by 1881, he had purchased what is now 210 Chestnut Street and established a lumberyard and hardware store. That being said, he held a lot of positions within the community. He worked as an insurance agent, a notary agent, and a real estate agent, and held many different roles. In 1880, he even served as the representative for the city of Chaska on the county commission for the Democratic County Convention. This committee was responsible for reporting the number of delegates for their towns in preparation for the 1880 presidential election. I think something that's important to note, in my research, I gathered that Myers had actually owned lots of different pieces of property in the city of Chaska and also a few farms in Stearns County. So this house, the photo of the house you see right here, is another house that's been dubbed a Myers house because the family had lived there for a while. It's close to where the Guardian Angels Catholic Church is located. You can see on the top left there is a photo of the hardware store that he had owned, as well as another ad that I was able to find. And then an interesting little tidbit I found in one of the historical newspapers. This bottom chunk right here is his father had reported a person who had taken one of his harnesses from the farm that they had owned, and had said he would like them to bring it back or at least come back and take the other one, which I thought was pretty funny. So one thing I want to express here, because there's a little bit of a fuzzy narrative, we know M.H. Myers owned this house, and I read a newspaper article suggesting he had bought it with the intention of living there with his new wife in the same year, but he also owned many, many different pieces of property, and I had a tendency to find his name popping up just about everywhere, so I'm not sure exactly how long or if he lived in this house, which I think is worth noting. For its architectural significance, this is a 1.5-story wood-framed house with a front enclosed porch. It was likely built on foundational block from the Sears catalog. It has a symmetrical facade with a front gabled form and traditional shiplap siding that remains in good condition. Sanborn maps from 1891 indicate that there was actually a shingle roof shed that existed in the back left corner of the property. It has since been removed, and there is now a garage on the opposite side. And there is also an original chimney that remains, but I am not quite certain whether or not it is Chaska brick. And on to our final house. This is the Lieberman house. I found some inconsistencies about when this house was built. Based off of the information I gathered at the History Center, it was looking about 1922, but according to Zillow, it's 1918, so it could be either of these dates. Both of them make sense given its historic background. This house would also qualify for 2 sections of HPC criteria, the first being associated with a person who's significantly contributed to the city's culture and development, and the second being the design, detail, and materials or craftsmanship, which represent a significant innovation. And this is similar to Chaska brick, but there's a little bit of a twist in here, and I'm excited to tell you about it. This is also a single-family residence, both historically and currently. So another glimpse of where we are located. This is a little bit further west from the Glatzel house. So the historic narrative of the Lieberman house, it's really interesting. The family had immigrated from Prussia to St. Paul in 1872. They had a family lineage of being brewers, both in Prussia and when they arrived in St. Paul. By 1881, both of their sons were born, and Bernard purchased the Fritz and Almer Brewery in Chaska. Just prior to that, he was working in St. Paul as a brewer. This brewery burnt down in 1897, which resulted in his decision to rebuild and expand as the Lieberman Brewery, and you can see a Sanborn map of the Lieberman Brewery down here from 1911. Then in 1891, he would also purchase the Brick Hotel on the northwest corner of Walnut and 2nd Streets, where his son would open a saloon and sort of carry on the family legacy of brewing. The Lieberman Brewery remained a family business, which would eventually be run by his son August, following his death in 1904, and is credited actually with producing Chaska's first bottled beer. However, following the ratification of the 18th Amendment and subsequent prohibition of intoxicating liquors in 1919, the brewery was forced to close its doors and was ultimately sold to make way for the construction of Highway 212. August, being the man that he was, decided to take this as an opportunity, and using the labor of his customers who owed him money for beer, he decided to demolish the existing building and use those materials to build the house that stands on 515 First Street West, which I would say is a contributing factor to its architectural significance. This indicates to me that it was likely Chaska brick because of the time period and how long the brewery was there, but I can't say that with absolute certainty. Here on the slides, there is an image of the Lieberman family as well as an ad for the brewery, and again, that Sanborn map that shows the brewery layout. My architectural background for this property is somewhat limited because I haven't had the opportunity to go visit this house in person myself. But from what I've been able to gather, this was a 1-story framed, low-pitched front gable roof, which sort of indicates craftsman and bungalow-style influences. It has a stone-based facade, unknown if it's Chaska brick, like I said, but I would err to say that it likely is. It has an enclosed front porch and a symmetrical facade, as well as a yellow brick base and decorative trim. So that is my presentation on the houses I've looked into so far. I wanted to give a special thanks to Lisa and all of her help the past couple of months, which has been really instrumental, as well as having access to the History Center, which is a fountain of information, which has been really lovely. And then I'd like to offer you the opportunity to ask me any questions if you have them.
Well, first, just a comment. I love the research. For me, this really brings to life just the rich history behind these properties, and is really representative of the great cultural impact that these properties have on Chaska. So really nice job, and thank you for all the effort and time spent on this.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if people have been following what's happening in Minneapolis with the private homeowner who unearthed the siding and found that there was a advertisement for a general store, but it got me thinking with the Myers house, like what's under that siding, right? Kind of fun. But no, great research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any questions, but I definitely echo that. That was great. That's awesome information for us to have, and we really appreciate you doing all that work.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, to dig up the story about the guy tearing down the brewery and using his debtors as labor, that was nice. nice.
It's a great story. Used as debtors, used the brick, brought it up here.
Well, I have a fun tidbit. I had gone to the History Center, and Lisa had introduced me to some History Center regulars who led me to that information. So it was quite a fun way to end up there. I'd also like to mention that in my work I have prepared or am in the process of, they're nearly finished, 3 forms for the nomination. So they should be finished by August 22nd, and then you'll be able to take and do with those forms whatever you will. So.
Assuming, in the future we have to replicate something like this, what were your biggest learnings or takeaways or information that you wish you had?
I would say the thing that had my largest obstacle was keeping the information of the various different houses clear from one another. So remembering lot and block information, which houses we had abstracts available for, which property owners had expressed interest. And so something that I did throughout my work was create a Google Sheets that kind of organizes that information. So if this project is passed on in the future, somebody should be able to have everything in a clear format where they'll be able to see and understand, like, this is lot and block number, abstract, that type of thing. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Liz, do you have anything else on this?
I don't. I think she did a very good job kind of
Agreed.
encapsulating the entire project and giving credit to where it's due in terms of all the resources she's been able to tap into. So, and I do want to acknowledge that there's 2 homeowners here.
We have a brewery.
Yeah. So if you guys have anything to say, you can certainly say whatever you want or any commentary. This is your time, or if you're just listening, that's fine too.
I would like to buy what she learned, because it was hard when we first moved to town to try to find that information, and I was curious, like, why were other properties already had that you could access for the historic center, and where it could be obtained. So I love that you've taken the initiative and done some of that work and shared it. I do like to share, like, our basement. We had the rumblings, like, when you and I
Yep.
spoke, that maybe it was also down low prohibition center, because our ceilings are extremely tall for a property of that age. They're at least 7 foot in the basement. And there is a bar, but we have no idea when it was put in, so it's built into the basement.
Have you found a second entrance or anything like that into the basement?
The underground tunnels.
There used to be previous entrances.
Oh, interesting.
We don't
Nice.
know.
Huh.
I know the daughter of the people that used to live next door, that they passed away now, but there's a lot that had been done.
Yeah, a lot of changes throughout the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious to learn more, and whatever it is, and I appreciate all your hard work on that. Awesome.
Well, congratulations on a new awesome story about your house.
Yeah.
All right, we will move on to item number 9, which is other business. Does any other commission member or Liz have any other business you'd like to discuss this evening?
I think the only thing I just want to put on record, which you guys are obviously aware of, is just the passing of our former chairperson, Chris Coleman, who served on the commission for 9+ years. She's been a long-standing community member, not just on the HPC, but I know in other organizations of the city. So it was very devastating to hear of her recent passing. So I just want to acknowledge all of the hard work and service that she's put into this commission and keeping the atmosphere here really carefree and caring. So just want to mention that.
Thank you very much. All right, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn this evening?
I will move to adjourn.
All right. And anybody second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Welvart to adjourn, and that is seconded by Commissioner Phillips. So that will adjourn our meeting for this evening. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thank you again for that presentation. It was wonderful.
Very good.
Recording stopped.